Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Total War Warhammer 2. It's been a while since we've been in here, but the recent announcement of the Vampire Coast has just gotten me so excited. I went and booted up Total War Warhammer 2 for the first time in a week or so, actually, a couple of weeks, and just dived into some multiplayer battles. I played two games today. This is the second. The first one I was playing Tomb Kings against Skaven, and just kind of charioted a whole bunch of Ratmen. But I wanted to play these Skaven because the Skaven are, as you know, my very favorite, and so we had to have a little bit of Ratman action here. So I'm playing against the Dark Elves, and this Dark Elf army, I'm on slow motion just to start things off here. The Dark Elf army is fairly small, fairly elite. We can actually go to full speed. Sisters of the Singing Doom in the back, 2 units of Shades with dual weapons in the center, Dread Spears and Blackguard in the back, Bleak Swords forming the front line with 1 more Dread Spear and the Blades of the Blood Queen. They're led by Crone Hellebron. Actually, let's go back down to slow motion while we look at abilities and spells and stuff. Crone Hellebron, who isn't nearly so broken as she used to be, with the Witch Brew, the Gaze of Cain, the Heroic Killing Blow, Blood Frenzy, etc. And they also have a Sorceress of the Dark. I'm sorry, I was about to say Shadows, but no, this is a Sorceress of the Dark with Soul Stealer, Doombolt, Blade Wind, Word of Pain, Chill Wind, Power of Darkness. I think this is all the spells plus Spiteful Conjuration. So, interesting little army. I cannot see the Shades at this point because they are, of course, invisible. My Warp Lightning Cannon is shooting at actually Crone Hellebron, but it hit some of the Shades right there. They also have the Raven Heralds, who are the flying repeater crossbow light cavalry. These guys are really good. They can do a lot of damage. However, they're also extremely fragile if your opponent has taken measures against them. I have got a pretty large Skaven army, and it's very spread out. I'm not formed up in a line like a lot of players do. 4 Skaven Slave Spears up front, 3 Clan Rat Spears with shield right behind them, 2 Plague Monks behind them, 1 Poison Wind Globadier in case of Hydras or something. I've got 2 Rat Ogres, a Warp Lightning Cannon guarded by a Storm Vermin Halberd. Over here I have 1 Gutter Runner with Poison. I'll talk about those guys in a bit. And I have my Leadership Corps, is a Gracier of Ruin on the bell with, I've taken off, what spells have I taken off him again? I took most of his items with him. I took the Warp Storm Scroll, Crack's Call, Howling Warp Gale, Warp Lightning, and the Dreaded 13th, just in case. The Dreaded 13th can be really useful sometimes, but it's unreliable. And then I have 2 Assassins, both with the Rivalhide Talisman, which is the AoE melee attack debuff. And this is honestly, I really like this Leadership Corps for Skaven. The Gracier does a fantastic amount of work, and the Assassins are great bodyguards, and, well, they're pretty decent Assassins, too, as well as line debuffers. So, the Raven Heralds are flying around trying to get at the artillery, but they're running into these Gutter Runners with poison, so they stop to shoot at them, and that's a terrible idea. The Raven Heralds are very flimsy, missile fire ruins them, and the Gutter Runners put out a lot of missile fire for 1 unit because they have 90 models, which most missile units don't. On top of that, they're not armor-piercing, but they're pretty high damage. So, that happens. The Raven Heralds get absolutely wrecked in a couple of volleys. Meanwhile, my infantry line is advancing, well, quote-unquote, line, and the Warp Lightning Cannons are changing their fire to the Blades of the Blood Queen, who will, of course, carve through all of my infantry in the blink of an eye unless I weaken them significantly. So the Skaven Slave Spears are going in. We're dropping a Crack's Call right across the Blades of the Blood Queen and these Bleak Swords. Gets a little piece of them and ruins half the Bleak Sword's HP in 1 hit. In comes some Plague Monks. We've got a Blade Wind coming, but it's actually pretty well aimed. It wipes out those Plague Monks pretty well. But they're just keeping the Blades of the Blood Queen in place. Over on this flank, we've got 2 Spears against 2 Spears. Up here, we've got a Plague Monk and a Skaven Slave Spear against a Bleak Sword. We're dropping an Assassin on there as well. And we've hit all 3 of these units with the Rivalhide Talisman, so they're all at 0 melee attack. Everyone's going crazy up in the front line. Cheeky little Warp Lightning does significant damage to both units. My troops are retreating, and I'm bringing in the Rat Ogres. The Blackguard are moving up to compensate for that. Meanwhile, my Gutter Runners have driven off the Raven Heralds, who just rallied back here, but I didn't notice. And the Gutter Runners are coming in to do some damage in the rear. A little bit of a Scorch. Scorch is not a very useful ability, as the Gracier of Ruin comes on in. The charge of the Rat Ogres, even though they clip the Blackguard, it does pretty significant damage, and it pins the Blackguard in place once again, so the Warp Lightning Cannons can start shooting. I'm also starting to push up my Storm Vermin Halberds. Here, my Poison Wind Globadiers are trying to move forwards, and the Shades are focusing on them, while my Rat Ogres push through the front line to get to the Shades. Some of my Rat Ogres do rampage, but 1 unit manages to get through. Hellebron comes back to stop them, as my Gracier of Ruin starts riding dirty through the back line. This This right here is actually a really good situation for me. I know it doesn't look like it, but what I've got here is my Rat Ogres, who are fairly cheap units, have tied up Crone Hellebron, the Blackguard, and both Shades. The Blades of the Blood Queen have more or less been chewed apart, and the Sisters of the Singing Doom are not being moved right now because my opponent is distracted. We're dropping some Warp Lightning on those Blackguard and Hellebron. Over here, meanwhile, this flank belongs to me. My Plague Monks have ripped apart the Dread Spears, or are in the process of ripping apart the Dread Spears, who have not caused nearly as much damage as they should have. And these Dread Spears are busy chasing the Grey Seer while my Assassin escorts off some Bleak Swords, and now I have a Chariot free to just run through the enemy backline at will, while this whole knot is busy. Meanwhile, I have uncommitted infantry units that are coming back from the fight, and will be returning very shortly, and I'm getting fire on the Blades of the Blood Queen, and the Sirens of the Sisters, of the Singing Doom. I'm just charging these Storm Vermin Halberds in to kind of tie these ladies down. They tried to hit me with a Chill Wind, but kind of missed. And the Grey Seer of Ruin is now fighting these Dread Spears, which isn't a bad matchup for him, honestly. They've got so much armor, it's fine. My Rat Ogres are retreating, but more infantry are coming forward at the same time. These Shades rotated to more or less dodge a Crack's Call, which would have destroyed them, but only got a little piece. My Gutter Runners are almost out of ammunition, but they're just sitting here firing into the side of the Sisters of the Singing Doom, while my Warp Lightning Cannon continues hitting the Blackguard of Nagaron to chip them down. Getting another Warp Lightning right on this blob. Blobs of infantry like this are fantastic Warp Lightning targets. Look at that. More than 10 kills with one cast, 5 Winds of Magic. Best spell in the game. One of the best spells, in terms of efficiency. Meanwhile, in the middle, my opponent's units here are kind of not doing a whole lot. I think he's just busy on too many fronts, trying to get these spears free or something. I'm not sure what he was doing, but Crone Hellebron is not moving and really needs to be moving right now because she is very, very high health. Unfortunately, my lord is a chariot, and so Crone Hellebron is going to have a bad day if they ever fight. So as long as the Grey Seer is in good health, Crone Hellebron is in serious danger. The Storm Vermin have collapsed the Sisters of the Singing Doom, who do not have very good armor piercing. The Sisters of the Singing Doom, let's look at their armor piercing value. Yeah, 9. So against the Storm Vermin Halberds, they do actually relatively little damage, despite having a very, very high melee attack rating. And of course, they were being fired on by the Gutter Runners the whole time, which really hurt them since their armor is almost nothing. And the poison reduces their stats. These Rat Ogres are kind of waiting back here to see if anything's going to try to go after the Warp Lightning Cannon. I didn't notice the Raven Heralds for a couple of minutes, so they got to fire a little bit. Up here, the Dread Spears are finishing off my troops, but at this point I'm just pouring spells into this blob here. I've got all my troops, one of my Assassins is in there. If we can finish off the Blackguard, I will be in very good shape, particularly if we can also take care of these Shades. So the Gutter Runners are actually firing the last couple volleys they have towards the Shades. We're hitting those Dread Spears with the Warp Lightning Cannons, and the Rat Ogres come in here, get a monstrous charge on the Shades, ruin their leadership, push them into the Grey Seer of Ruin, and these guys are going to go really quick. My Gutter Runners are kind of standing here forgotten at the moment, but so are these Dread Spears, and the Dread Spears are taking a lot of damage. These Dread Spears, meanwhile, are chasing routed units that don't matter off the side of the map as the game enters its conclusion. We're piling in units on the Sorceress and the Blackguard, not on Crone Hellebron necessarily, because Crone Hellebron I don't really want to fight with infantry. I want to get units away from her, bog her up with some Skaven Slave Spears, let the Artillery, who is finishing off the Raven Heralds, because I have no other ranged units left, let the Artillery turn on her and focus her down, and then we can bring in the Grey Seer as my Rat Ogres finish chasing off the Shades. So at this point, there's pretty much nothing left of the Dark Elf army. They've got this one unit, which has been caught by Clan Rat Spears, and is about to be hit from behind by more tattered infantry, which won't stop it, but will bog it down here. The Blackguard are gone, the Blades of the Blood Queen are long gone. Pretty much all that's left is the Sorceress and Crone Hellebron, and that's not enough to stop all of this. A couple more cheeky lightning shots on the Dread Spears. I guess I didn't turn my fire on Crone Hellebron just yet. There I go. And a little bit of Warp Lightning. Warp Lightning actually does respectable damage to characters as well, and that is enough to tip the balance of power. So with that, army losses hit and the Dark Elves are defeated. I feel like this kind of wide spread out front line is really important for the Skaven. You have these really cheap units that exist to take up space, like the Skaven Slave Spears. They got no kills, but they did a really important job. They stopped the enemy elite infantry from grinding through to the stuff that actually mattered. So you need to spread them widely in order to take up a lot of space. The assassins, great support. Early on, I kicked off both of their rival hide talismans just in order to stop the Skaven slave spears from dying instantly. These Blades of the Blood Queen, where'd they go? The Blades of the Blood Queen here. They got 127 kills. And actually, they did get a significant piece of my Plague Monks, so some of those were valuable kills, but it took them a lot longer because my one assassin, this one who got the crap kicked out of him, was in there with the rival hide talisman, and he debuffed their melee attack tremendously while they were under fire. So they got to stand there, slowly killing Skaven slaves and Plague Monks while they were hit by warp lightning and spells and all kinds of nasties. One Storm Vermin Halberd to protect the warp lightning cannon I feel like is really important. In this game, it wasn't really needed because they didn't have fast melee units. But against Dark Elves will commonly take Dark Riders or Harpies or something to attack the cannons, and having that Storm Vermin Halberd kind of hovering around really helps to fend those things off. The Poison Wing Globadiers, likewise, I really want to take one, because with Dark Elves, they may well bring a Hydra, they may well bring a Lord on a Dragon or something. The same reason why I took Howling Warp Gale and the Warpstorm Scroll on my Grey Seer, in order to stop those big flyers or something from getting around to my back. The Poison Wing Globadiers are important for that. Gutter Runners with Poison can also be useful. You can't really commit too much to Gutter Runners these days. They're nothing like as good as they used to be, but you can take one or two, and they can provide a very useful harassing and rear firing potential. These guys, they did a lot of work. They stopped the Raven Heralds after the cannons had to turn away to fire at more important targets, and then they came in and they just threw their shuriken into the back of the Blades of the Blood Queen, the Sisters of the Singing Doom, and the Blackguard of Naggarond, and did enormous damage. I mean, the Sisters of the Singing Doom, which are an expensive, valuable unit, only got 13 kills because they were under fire by the Gutter Runners, and they were fighting a heavily armored unit that they're not really suited to kill. The Plague Monks. This Plague Monk did fantastic. If you can put Plague Monks on basic infantry and let them do their work, they will pay off in spades. These Plague Monks, even these ones, honestly, that's okay. I'll take 41 kills against the Blades of the Blood Queen anytime. They did their job. They did get routed, but then they rallied and came right back. And the Clan Rat Spears with shields, of course, are basically just slightly tougher Skaven slaves that exist for the same purpose. They take up space, they absorb enemy fatigue and morale, and they give you rear charges sometimes, and that's about all you want. In this fight, sometimes you can use these dual assassins as a gank squad. You can kind of slip them through and get them onto the enemy lord. Against Crone Hellebron, that would be a really bad idea, because Crone Hellebron will absolutely kick the shit out of two assassins at once. But it was still useful to have them around. I managed to get one of them onto the Sorcerers of the Dark now and then, and did some damage. But mainly, honestly, this fight was mainly not about leadership. This fight was about both of our leaderships pretty much stayed out of the big fights. Crone Hellebron threw herself in against the Rat Ogres and such different times. But I was focused on destroying her valuable units, and then once the whole rest of the army was gone, the leadership crumbled. So, it was an interesting one. If I was going to change what I'd done, honestly, well, obviously if I knew what my opponent's list would be, I would cut the Poison Wing Globadiers and bring more infantry. But that said, they absorbed a lot of, even they were valuable because they absorbed a lot of shade fire at a crucial time, kept the shades from focusing on my Grey Seer, who was really the better priority target. Getting the Grey Seer back there unscathed was a turning point of the battle, and once he was free to kind of rampage around the enemy back line, charging shades and dropping warp lightning, I think it was pretty much over at that point. But then the Poison Wing Globadiers helped that happen because they were a very visible, hey, look at me, I'm throwing green balls of goop all over your dudes, why don't you shoot me down kind of target. And that drew the Shade's attention in a big way. So in any case, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. And of course, I will see you when the Curse of the Vampire Coast comes out, because you better believe I will be playing me some zombie pirates. Till then, have a good one.